Loneliness and isolation in older adults lead to an increased risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, and stroke. That's according to researchers supported by the National Institute on Aging. They add the epidemic of loneliness can also promote cognitive decline and depression, negatively affecting the health of individuals and society at large. But the research shows adults who engage in meaningful, productive activities with others tend to live longer and have a sense of purpose. A Plattsburgh resident has been combating senior isolation for decades, giving older people and even younger folks a social and nostalgic activity to look forward to at least once a week, every week. He organizes old-fashioned movie nights. If you can remember the distinctive clicking sound of a film projector and the look and feel of actual film before celluloid yielded to digital technology, then the flickering images coming from devices owned by Andy MacDougall may brighten your life. The Plattsburgh man hosts movie events in his home and other venues in the area, and he joins us in our studio now. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Andy, your name is well known in the city of Plattsburgh, and it's always associated with movies because you were a film reviewer for the Press Republican in the 1980s and the 1990s. Which came first for you, the film reviewing or the film projecting?
Projecting, well before.
And how did that start?
With my dad's standard 8mm silent Keystone movie projector with which we watched all of our home movies.
So you were doing that as a very young kid. You were watching the home movies.
Yes, I was just an audience member at the time from my dad's projecting.
And how did you get going with projecting films?
In high school, I got a hold of a film rental library's catalog, 16mm, and I was just fascinated leafing through this catalog that films were available for rental, and I started a personal paper drive through the National Honor Society, of which I was a member, to raise money to rent these movies, which I would show in the study halls after hours. And this was Mount Assumption Institute.
And now you're projecting movies on a regular basis out of your home. But let's really get to the heart of this. I'm an avid film lover myself. What is it about movies that moves you the most?
Well, dating back to when I was 2.5 years old, my mom took me to see Mary Poppins when it was first run in 1964, and then a reissue of Bambi, since that was originally released quite a few years before that. And it really was, as it has been for so many, the tragedy that befell Bambi's mom, just the spectacle of that, the sound and fury, and really made an indelible mark on my young mind. And just sitting there in the theater and having all this happen on an image 30 feet high and, however wide it was just overwhelming. And so that's really where the seed was planted with my fascination with motion pictures.
But when you and I were watching movies in the 1980s, we were watching them in the theater on 35mm if we were in a cinema, but that's not what you project. What is it you project?
16mm. 35mm is much bulkier, so 16mm was much easier to ship back and forth, and then the projectors are smaller, the film reels aren't as heavy.
I remember seeing some 16mm film projections in libraries, and there was a time when teachers in classrooms would show educational films on 16mm. In the 1970s and 80s, the teachers all had to know how to use a film projector. And many people don't even realize there's this whole community. Right now they exist online, but they buy and sell
and trade
16mm films.
Yeah. Like vinyl has come back, there is kind of a new market for 16mm collecting, and that the younger generation is getting into it, either because 16mm collecting is already in their family tree, they've had collections handed down to them by the elder generation, or word of mouth is helping spread the good word. So I don't think the format will ever die.
What's one of the best prints that you've owned?
I once had a print of Walt Disney's Fantasia, like right when I first started out. I was just out of high school, and I managed to get for a very reasonable price. The color was still great on it, and like in mint condition. So that was my first big treasure.
Fantasia, that's one of my favorite films too.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Well, you told me you own about 150 films in a rotating collection with your buying and trading items. What kinds of movies do you show your audience?
A little bit of everything. I touch upon all genres, comedies, musicals, dramas, and horror, sci-fi, and fantasy. I try to sneak as much of the quote-unquote monster movies onto the programming schedule as I can.
Yeah, I remember every year when Halloween approaches, you're showing scary movies.
Yes, but I do want to try to please all tastes, so a little bit of all the genres. My motto with my film series is expect the unexpected.
That's fantastic. And you actually host your film screenings. You will get up in front of the audience and you'll share some comments about it.
Welcome to tonight's gala presentation of Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and it has double local appeal because Jean Arthur was born in Plattsburgh and then became a big Hollywood star. And the title character, Mr. Deeds, played by Gary Cooper, hails from Vermont, just across the lake from us.
So people going to your screenings, after they arrive at the venue, what happens?
Well, a number of them make a beeline for the snack tray, which is quite extensive, among our ample free refreshments. And then once they're seated, after that, my introductory comments, and then the screening of the featured attraction, which is in 2 parts. And so there is an intermission, during which many of our participants stock up on concessions once again. And then comes the second half of the presentation of the film, and then post-viewing discussion.
Well, I attended one of your film screenings back in December, and I had the chance to ask some of your audience members why they enjoyed coming to your events.
Well, I enjoy Andy's screenings because it offers an opportunity to see films that you normally don't see in the commercial theaters.
Well, it's always something different, something you probably wouldn't have chosen on your own. You would have went, well, I'm not going to go watch that. But because he brought it up, you think Andy knows what he's doing, so it must be a reason and a good thing. So yeah, you go and see it just for curiosity's sake. And then when you do, you go, well, that really was a good movie.
I drive up from Malone for these screenings specifically, and it's just a wonderful experience with the people that attend. They're great listeners, and they have comments after that really bring out the essence of what you just experienced. And then Andy's got his summation. It's just brilliant. But I've been coming out here since I think the late '80s. And in different venues he's had, and the Little Fugitive was the first one I saw, and it was just a really charming black and white film about a young boy that kind of gets lost for the day in Coney Island, and so that I was sold after that. It was just a fantastic experience.
So that's impressive. Michael Hart, a man immersed in the arts community of Malone, will drive an hour to Plattsburgh to go to your film screenings, and he mentioned that he loved watching Little Fugitive with your group. These are very rare movies you're screening sometimes, like that movie shot on the streets of Paris. What a charming movie, and isn't it nearly impossible to see that anywhere else?
It is impossible to see it other than the 2 existing 16mm prints, one of which is in my collection. And among my greatest pleasures is to be able to present something like Paris Beat that nobody can see anywhere else under any circumstances.
So we can go to Andy MacDougall's movie screenings and sometimes see a film that we could not see on television or on home video or streaming.
Or on YouTube, and Paris Beat is a prime example.
Well, many people that night watching Paris Beat in the audience were older people who may recall fondly the days of film projectors before home video took off. How do your screenings, in your opinion, make a difference in their lives?
Well, as you said, there is sentimental value involved. If we have occasion to draw out a senior citizen who otherwise might have been in isolation, and I can number some cases for you, well, then that's very gratifying to me to know that I'm providing a service that would enable somebody who otherwise might be alone in their apartment or whatever to come out and be part of this communal experience. For example, there was a woman who came to us who had recently been moved to Plattsburgh from her residence downstate. A relative of hers told me that she had been basically in isolation, and once she became a member of our group, and that happened through word of mouth, she very much enjoyed participating in the films and kind of like, came out of her shell. And only after she sadly passed a few months after joining us did I find out through next of kin that it was one of the most precious experiences since she had moved to Plattsburgh, was to be able to join us at our film screenings and share in that communal experience.
Would you say your film screenings fill a void in the lives of some of the older people who attend?
Oh, absolutely. In addition to the example just cited, there was one night we set up in the rec room of a local apartment complex, a 16 millimeter screening. And when we were packing up, after all was said and done, a gentleman came over, a senior, who engaged us in 4 hours of conversation about his experiences when he was younger with 16 millimeter and just his lifelong love of film. And so, and it came to my attention later that he's kind of a loner. So we were able to draw him out and make that night special for him.
That's wonderful. Do your film screenings get some people out of their homes who might not leave their homes much?
Yes, there is one example of an otherwise homebound senior who loves to bring her pet dog to the screenings, and he's become kind of our mascot. So that's a very enjoyable kind of like side note to what I do. What we do is to have bipeds and quadrupeds alike enjoying these screenings.
So you're providing some doggy entertainment too.
Doggy entertainment too, yeah. He's always very well behaved. He'll bark when a dog in the movie barks, and sometimes more enthusiastically than others, and he has to calm down a little bit. So he's a lot of fun, and so is his owner. She's quite a character herself, constantly wearing leopard prints.
Well, they look cute together. And speaking of man's best friend and friendship in general, do your events sometimes give people a sense of companionship, and are new friendships perhaps formed from these events?
Oh, absolutely. Which reminds me of the Senior Scholars Program, co-sponsored by Clinton County Office for the Aging and Senior Citizens Council of Clinton County, in which I have taught over the years a film course on several occasions, and I inadvertently played matchmaker during one semester. A couple of enrollees in the class started dating after the semester had ended.
So you are showing films in these classes?
Yes, I use 16 millimeter films. There are 6 total meetings during the course of a semester, so we watch 6 feature films.
So their story had a happy ending, just like some of the movies do.
Tantamount to a classically happy ending in movies themselves sometimes.
So what do you think it is about your film screenings that provides something that engages the older people?
Well, in the context of sentimental value, I remember hearing from one participant in my Senior Scholars Program that they enjoyed hearing the gentle clicking of the film through the projector, much like how they enjoy listening to the crackles in vinyl when they put on a record.
I like that sound too.
Good, and so do I.
You don't believe I'm under arrest?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Why not? Why don't you believe I'm under arrest?
And when the sound of the projector stops and the screening is done, what happens? Do people in your home just get up and leave?
Well, with any luck, we'll have people hanging around for post-viewing discussion. Because fine to be sitting in the dark and silence watching movies together, but once that part of the evening concludes, then we're interacting, sharing our opinions. Somebody might have an anecdote about a previous experience watching the particular featured attraction of the evening, and it goes from there.
I think a lot of people would agree that the social interactions at your events are what makes them so engaging. And let's hear from some of the participants about what they had to say about the social element of your film screenings.
People feel less lonely and isolated when they can be out with people. And it's a chance to socialize as well as see the film.
It's just good because it gets people out, and having contact with each other.
If I were watching the movie at home by myself, I wouldn't get much feedback. And Andy is an encyclopedia of cinema knowledge, so he can always frame the film with some background information. I like that very much.
The social aspect is wonderful. I come for that almost as much as I come for the films themselves, because of the fact that we have a very eclectic group of people here who are just remarkable to interact with.
There's lots to do other than the films, like eat pizza, see people, talk to people, and enjoy an old-fashioned way of seeing films.
There's just camaraderie. And, other people are enjoying it too, and I think that always makes things more enjoyable when other people are enjoying it with you.
Well, these are very positive effects happening because movies do bring people together. And I'd like to remind our viewers, your screenings happen in home environments and sometimes public venues. And if they'd like to attend a screening, how can they learn more information?
Simply send me an email at serious_61@yahoo.com. That's SERIOUS_61 and that gets you into my address book. And from that point on, you'll be kept abreast as to what's going on from one week to the next, and until further notice, we do film screenings on Thursdays and Saturday evenings. So you'll get email promos from one week to the next, and you'll know exactly what's going on.
Do you charge admission for your screenings?
No, it's just on a donation basis.
Well, Andy, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us and for sharing the way you bring seniors and younger people together to fight isolation and to share the wonders of cinema.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk about my contribution, my humble contribution to the wonderful world of film.
Spotlight is supported by the Glenn and Carol Pearsall Adirondack Foundation, dedicated to improving the quality of life for year-round residents of the Adirondack Park.